It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Brant Handley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them, so thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. My guest today is CEO Brent Erenwert. Brent has been in the produce industry for 20 years with a strong focus on sales and purchasing. He's grown through many roles at his family's produce firm, Brothers Produce. Starting in the warehouse as a child, he is currently CEO. Brent helped Brothers Produce grow from about $12 million a year in sales in 1999 to over $300 million a year today. Brent attended the University of Houston in the Hotel Restaurant Management program. Brent, welcome into the corner office.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to come on the show.
It's great to have you here. And we always kind of like to start with your early years. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, where you grew up and maybe some of the influences, your parents, brothers and sisters.
So I grew up in the city of Houston. Biggest influencer of my life was probably my father, who I watched with his brother grow this company from basically 2 vans when I was a child to, where it is today. But I would go to work with him. There was no more excitement in my life than getting up early and going to work with my dad, maybe sleeping in his office about 10 o'clock in the morning after those early days. And I've actually continued with that and bringing my kids to the office and letting them experience that. But I grew up in this business. I mean, I remember some of my earliest memories were, being woken up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning on days that my friends, would get to sleep in, and because I wanted to go to work with him and it'd be a part of that and see what he did and spend that time with him.
That's awesome. So Dad and your uncle got things started. What year was that?
So I'm going to take it kind of farther back than that.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather was a Holocaust survivor that came over to this country through Ellis Island, was put into Houston. He didn't really know any English, was basically given bananas and walking up and down what we would call Main Street, which was the produce area in Houston at the time, and was selling stalks of bananas, and people would start having him, asking him for other things. And basically that introduced my family into produce. But it wasn't until later on, around 1979, 1980, my father and his brothers created their own produce company that was basically just a couple of routes that
distribution
generated.
For the most part.
And they had no warehouse. They would basically buy everything for what they needed that day and sold it and count their money at the end of the day and call it a day, and had no inventory. Well,
the old-fashioned way.
And he probably claims that to this day he made more money doing it back then than he does now.
Unfortunately, that's probably true. And do you have brothers and sisters? Were they also involved in the business?
I have a sister who deals with HR. She's in the HR side, which is a side that I have no interest to be a part of or even get involved in, with how complicated HR has become today. HR, food safety, insurance, Department of Transportation. It's all areas that are not my forte. That's why I surround myself with good people that can do that.
And when you got started, it sounds like it was pretty early on, right? Sleeping in Dad's office and getting up early on. It sounds like you went out and did the routes. As you got a little bit older, what other kinds of jobs did you do growing up in the business?
Well, basically, so I graduated, that was as a child. So I guess I'll kind of go to my age now. In 1998, I graduated high school, which is right about 20 years ago. I just had my 20-year reunion actually last 2 weeks ago. I started over there full time as a driver. I'd always worked in the warehouse kind of through high school, just a couple days a week. I mean, aside from the times when I was sleeping in my dad's office, I may have actually in high school slept on top of a few pallets of onions in the coolers whenever I wasn't supposed to.
I
But
love it. Were you a good student in high school?
I was always a B student.
Yeah.
And it's one thing I always told people I was always more of a street smart person than a book smart person. I'm more of a learn on the fly person. But so, going back, so I started as a driver at 18, which actually the thing today is I actually wouldn't be able to drive those trucks at 18 because the laws have all changed. You have to be older than that. But I went from there and I moved into customer service. Then I moved into accounting. And then I moved into sales, went into purchasing. And this is all, over a 5-7 year transgression. From purchasing, I moved into also a role as vice president, and then went into a president role for a while. Pulled back some into what I called myself as a chief innovation officer because I wanted to really figure out are we a produce company? I always felt the best companies in the world that fail, they don't fail because they didn't do things right. They actually failed because they didn't evolve and innovate and migrate. So I really wanted to, as we kept growing so fast and rapidly, I wanted to figure out what are we, where are we going, and where are we going to be 3 years from now. And then recently I've stepped into that CEO role now that I know our vision and I know where we want to be. I've always kind of thought of myself as more of a visionary and not really an operator. I've just believed if I surround myself with good people that, you're only as good as your offensive line.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's rewind a little bit. I kind of want to go back to some of those earlier years. So sounds like a lot of time was spent, obviously, working at Brothers and growing up. But anything else outside of class? Are you involved in sports, music, theater, any other kind of outside entrepreneurial opportunities? What were some of the other things that kept you busy during those earlier years?
In I'm only 5'7", so when everybody started getting taller than me, I guess when I was about 12,
football wasn't an option.
12, yeah, baseball, everybody's taller, and if my parents weren't, doing the politics and paying for the dirt at the fields and whatnot, I started playing golf.
Really?
Golf became my sport. I knew golf was a sport that, it didn't matter who. It's one-on-one sport. If you go out and you took care of the other person, you weren't going to get denied from the team. So I played 4 years of varsity golf. I made varsity as a freshman.
Awesome.
Golf was a great sport that, I was able, the team sports were great to learn about teams, but golf is a focused sport and golf's also a good business sport. I mean, I try to.
Yeah, what's some of the lessons you learned from playing golf in high school?
The one thing that I always liked about learning is, that it's the same, but that applies to business. It's not how good your good shots are. It's, how good are the bad shots? How when we make a bad decision, how far did that put us off the course of where we needed to get to? So if I yank the ball left, how do I manage to get back and make that par? Because we're not always going to make the best decisions.
Not everything's a hole in one, right?
No, not exactly. Yeah, we can't birdie every hole, and sometimes you got to play for the bogey. I mean, we're going to lose money on some decisions we make, and it's just like I said, it's not how good your good shots are. It's how bad, how good are the misses to what they don't knock us offline and get the whole company off track. And that's what I really took away from golf.
Yeah, those are good lessons. Go back a little bit again to your parents' influence, Dad and your uncle, obviously, key players and, kind of developing your business acumen. What were some of the early lessons that your dad and your uncle maybe taught you or that you remember learning at an early age?
I remember learning from them just I watched how much fun they had on the job and how important it was to laugh and have a good time at what you were doing. And I've really tried to spill that culture into the team that I hire today, because if you're not, we spend half of our time of our life, working. And if you're not having fun, it doesn't matter how much money you're making. If you're not having fun doing it, or you're miserable being there, what good of life is that for you? And I watched how much fun they have, and the passion and the enjoyment they had to go there and be at work.
That's a great lesson.
Just their relationships that they had, and how much people enjoyed being around them. It was, contagious personalities that they had, that I learned how valuable that was to grow in the business.
That's interesting. My dad and brother had a side business together. My dad was a principal, PhD. His brother was a lifeguard, but they owned and operated a number of residential properties in California. And, I always have memories, now that you say that, of them laughing together and having coffee and really enjoying their company. They were the best of friends.
No, that's the thing, and me and, me and my dad, I can say that I've gotten to spend a lot of time, with him, time that I'll never forget. But there's definitely some arguments. There's a lot of
those happen
there's
too.
There's a lot of things that, looking back, that's not times I'm going to look at, at least I got to be around my dad as much as I did. Some people only see their parents, every couple weeks or once a month or once a year. But, he still comes in, to do some things, and I get to see him still, because he's one of those that's he's just going to want to be there to have something to do.
Yeah. Now, was mom involved in the business, or was she more stay at home and made sure you and your sister?
No, she was, she got us out. Yeah, no, she got us out to school, but she was that mom, that you got to have that person in order for that person to be successful and to grow that business. You got to have that strong force behind it, and that's what she was. She made sure that everything was taken care of at the house. And
what were some of the lessons? Yeah, what are some of the lessons you think you picked up from mom?
Probably picked up a lot of patience. Probably more organizational skills on staying on top of things, and trying to think of probably she was the one that helped us with our homework and did everything, because my dad he worked so much, so
she kept the house together.
She
kept the kids on target.
She got it. Yeah. It was a joint effort though, and like I said, I became what I am because of them.
Did mom or dad go to college?
My dad did, I believe, and don't quote me on this. And if he goes back and listens to this, he probably won't. He'll probably say I was wrong on this, but I believe he only did a semester, if not a little under a year of college. And I personally never finished college. I still have like 30 hours left.
What made you decide to go? Because, it's tough with a family business.
That was
you probably, you were destined to take over at some point.
So what happened is, I was working full time. I was doing sales at the time. I was about 94 hours into that degree, which was pretty much about right at a senior. And what my dad kept coming to me, and he's like, we need that. You're doing, what are you really going to get out of that? It's a degree, and it's good. But you know what, your home's here, and it's kind of, so I wasn't going to argue with them. Personally,
was it kind of your decision to go to college? It doesn't sound like dad was a big supporter of that.
He really, college wasn't, I was fortunate to grow up in a family business. I have a lot of friends that grew up in family businesses that didn't have anything. Their parents have since sold off the businesses or closed the businesses. I was fortunate to grow up in a family business doing something that I enjoyed it. I've been able to grow it. I've embraced it. It's been addicting for me. And I think that, I went to college just, it's kind of a bucket list. You know what? I can say I did it.
Right.
I didn't finish it. Yeah. The University of Houston's off, they've came to me plenty of times, and they'll give me the rest of my thing to finish it, just to get that degree,
so they can claim them as your own.
Helping them. Yeah, they want me in that alumni deal. Then I'm technically not an alumni right now.
Right. That's right. Your invested interest.
I don't know how long those hours stay good. I hear 50 years, but I don't.
Well, I
don't
can see
know.
why they have there in your sights. But what did you study? What did you spend your time doing there? Did you declare a major? And if so, what did you get out of college?
So I did get my 2-year associate's degree. That was from a junior college, and then I went into hotel restaurant management. And the reason I chose hotel restaurant management was because of the fact that I wanted to know the others. I knew I knew.
Yeah, smart.
I knew what I was going to do from a young age. I mean, I knew at 8 years old the produce business was for me.
Right.
I mean, I was, I knew it. People could see me on the dock, selling, things to people on the dock at 8 to 10 years old. I mean, you knew I was going to get into this industry, so I knew it. I just wanted to know how to make my company better. So I wanted to know when I walk into an account, I want to know how to run their business.
And did that help you? Did you think that you picked up enough there to understand the other side?
I picked up a lot. I picked up a lot because I know, I learned how their accounting systems work. I learned kitchen layouts. I learned, all sorts because a lot of those are business classes. But the problem with that degree, they say with the hotel restaurant management degree, sometimes a person doesn't look at a business. A person with a business degree, if you're going to look at degrees, could run a hotel or a restaurant. But sometimes a hotel restaurant management person, I mean, anybody can do anything if you give them the chance. But degree wise, they say, well, that's not a business degree. It's a specialized business degree. So there was a lot of business classes that I could really devote into how I could become a better salesperson and do that.
So you went back to Brothers. What was that first job when you left college and rejoined? We actually never left, right? That's right. You were working the whole time, right? So did you just kind of continue to do the same thing, or did you take over other responsibility?
Yeah, what I did, so basically through those, because I took a year off after high school.
Mm-hmm.
Then I did that 2-year degree, and so by the time I got to that major, I was doing sales, and that's kind of what my dad was saying. He's like, if I got you producing this kind of sales, working half the time and going to school, I mean, it's costing me, him money by me not being there full time, and it's costing him the school money too. So I mean, so it's kind of a catch-22, and there wasn't really a strong arming. He didn't really have to strong arm me to to get out of that.
Too hard. Wait, so did you come in right away, and were you managing people, or what do you remember about the first time that started happening?
No, we had a very small sales force at the time, so that we were probably, when I went on full time, we were I think we were between probably $15-18 million company. And then we went out and hired some other salespeople, but we still didn't really have a sales manager, and I was only 21, 22 years old at the time, which it's hard to get respect at that age. But so when we hired these salespeople, we basically, my uncle would kind of run the sales department, and we all worked together. We were a team. We did things together. A lot of my accounts, were just what I considered house accounts. I was, a salary person. I never really had to manage until I was probably, as I moved more into that vice president role. And I will tell you, it was very tough in a family business when you come up in it to evolve from working for people and then becoming a manager over people that are older than you, that you used to work, people that trained me. I feel both sides of it. I mean, it's got to be uncomfortable, and how the other side of, this person's a lot younger, and I remember when this person was a kid, and now they're my boss.
He was in short pants.
It's uncomfortable on my side. It's uncomfortable on my side too. It's and I'm always kind of considered like I'm very compassionate and nice, and I don't think I've honestly ever fired anybody in my life. I mean, I always just am a big second chance and getting people in the right place person. And so, it takes, I still struggle at 38 years old, managing older people, because I think there's still just a culture difference. And
what were some of those early leadership lessons you had after you began managing those folks who, as you said, knew you as a young child, and now you're kind of directing their careers?
The lessons that that I always I've always just been a big listener, and try to listen and evaluate situations. And I like to think I'm kind of a quick instinct person. I always believe the first instinct you have on something is kind of the one you roll with, because if you think about things too long, that you're going to flip flop on things. But the lessons that I just kind of learned is in managing is just to kind of that everybody put yourself down to where everybody's equal, and you kind of make the decisions from the employees. Humility. Put the I guess the term is I try to I let my managers manage. And because I only want to intervene on things. If I don't let them manage, and they're not going to make their own decisions. I don't want to step over boundaries and micromanage things. I want them to be able to react for themselves. And then if there's something that I don't quite think was a right decision or so, then I'll step in. But if I constantly step in, then people aren't going to be able. I want the managers to make mistakes so they can learn from them, and then come to me and get advice and ask how I would, handle that situation. Not that I would do the right things on this, but I want them to experience for themselves how to do things as well. And then that'll respect them, at least to me too, to where they'll know that, hey, you know what, he's going to let me kind of manage myself. He's not over my shoulder. And you're going to get more respect out of them too. And I think it's going to make them and their team stronger.
Now, did you always work for Dad or your uncle, or did you have other bosses in the zoos?
I worked at my first job was at, I mowed yards as a kid, but at 12 years old, which was probably illegal child labor, I worked at a baseball card shop, but I basically just got paid in baseball cards. I was always a big baseball card collector.
I love it.
Then at 16, I worked at a golf course, probably a $4 an hour job or something. But we played a lot of golf on the clock, so that's actually where I lowered my handicap, was from doing that. Then I worked at a movie.
What have you learned from some of those bosses outside of brothers, outside of your dad and your uncle?
I was so young at the time on those things that I don't really know what I took. Honestly, I was such a young kid, and looking back on it, because I worked at a movie theater also. I think what I saw is in those jobs is kind of when I go to hire, kind of ties to when I go to hire people. I try to hire people that are looking for careers and not jobs. And those two jobs that I was working, based on the turnover that I saw just the time I was there, and the way that, not that this was me, but the way that I saw other employees, the way they would respect these companies, they were just looking for the next job and moving on. They didn't respect the brand of the company, and I believe that the reason I built such a strong team around me is because people they own this brand like it's their own. They're proud to have that logo and on their shirt and represent that brand and that culture, and that they're here for their life. This is a career. This isn't a job. They're not just passing through.
Well, Brent, you went through a number of different, jobs and assignments at Brothers Produce to get to your corner office. But would you say that your leadership style has evolved over time, and if so, how?
I think that the way it's evolved is that I've always said that being in that corner office is the worst place for me to possibly be, because if I'm sitting stuck in that corner, then I'm not physically helping the company somewhere. I need to be out of that corner and doing something and trying to, really, get my, whether it's more sales or evolving the company. So the way my style has evolved is I've tried to create more mid-level management and more managers. So everybody, is kind of there's a really good flow chart structure in there, and I let my managers manage. And then, like I said, if they need my opinion on something or if something, I'll always give my opinion. And if there's going to be a big decision on something or a direction we're going to do, I want everybody involved in that decision. So when we break that huddle, we're all on the same page. So if we decide we're going to run a running play to the right, for some reason, run left. I want everybody to know if and why this play failed. What could we have done to make that? Because I'm not always going to call nobody's perfect and nobody's ever going to be perfect, but we have to. These mistakes are made as a team and not as an individual.
How do you decide when it's time to micromanage and when it's time to kind of stay out of the sandbox of the people that work for you?
I kind of looking down, just kind of looking to see if I start seeing things, or if I start. I talk to my employees every day. I walk and
a lot of management walking around. It sounds like
I walk around. I think undercover boss is a great thing.
Right.
I don't do it that way, but I walk around and I have different people I talk to. Hey, how's it going today? Anything good? And I talk to the employees. I listen to them. It's I think I told you I've got involved in this city council race, and that's kind of one of the stepping stones I've used with having no background in politics. I've used the way my employees are as a way to represent the city. You got to listen to them in order to make something great. The people have to be happy and know they're being listened to and that their voices are being heard. And you can't always please everybody, but we can at least try to accommodate the most we can. So that's what I try to do, is I just try to walk around, and while I can't be everything to everyone and there's no way I'll ever know every aspect of my company that's going on, but I know the certain areas and where to go to figure it out, and make sure that every level of my company's at least satisfactory, if not happy. And then like I said, when you talk about the micromanaging, if there's something that's I feel maybe an issue, and then I'll go to that manager and say, hey, I think we got an issue here, or let's try to focus here. What can let's make a plan here, see what we can do.
You've gone through tremendous growth. I mean, it was amazing, $10-12 million at the turn of the century to over $300 million today. And of course, with that, you've had a lot of people that have come into the organization. Tell us a little bit about building a company culture, because I'm sure the culture's evolved as well during that period of time.
Yeah, the culture change has been a very, that's been a challenge with me and my dad, because as I built this, I always like to think of things like a sports team. But, you can be strong at the top, but you have to have a strong farm system too, and grow from within and propel yourself for years to come. And that's where I feel that the culture is what's done that. Is we've been able to, I've got great veteran leadership at my company. I've got a really strong middle. I mean, I said, I'm 38 years old. I'm probably one of the older managers now at my company.
Right. Big reversal
and
there.
that's because I've been able to really build a ground level, from raising employees up through the ranks, from the warehouse. Like my head of food safety, who's just incredible, one of the best in the business, started on my tomato line. I mean, then, it's under 30 years old. It's just incredible in this industry. And with the culture, we just created this fun, and it goes back to what I learned from my father and my uncle, laughing, having a good time, smiling, when customers, call in, that they hear laugh, and they know it's not just calling a boring, 800 number and things. But I think that, a big part, people have to be happy at work. And one of that, and that culture that we've created up there is just, we're going to have a good time. We're going to have fun.
What do you think's unusual or unique about your company culture?
I think it's that we have fun.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, I think anytime that I get a employee, it's so hard to hire people these days too, because of non-competes that I've run into so many times on things. But anytime I hire, people from different companies, they always say that what they love and they hear about Brothers is that people have fun at work.
That's the wow factor for you.
The wow, and I love hearing it, and it's not an uncommon occurrence, for somebody to walk into my buying office and there's a war of stress balls, people throwing stress balls at each other,
Right.
And that kind of stuff can can happen, and, we have fun, customer, company events, that I've really created, I always say my father, my uncle created a company, and I evolved that into a brand. I changed the logo up because we're not a produce company anymore. In my eyes, we're a service company, because everything in this world is now about service. And that's what I've taught every new employee that comes in on everything, is that I've taught them, we say yes. I mean, service, lettuce is lettuce, tomatoes are tomatoes, but service is what separates the average from the great. And service, we're always going to mess up. It's in the statistics with the size. We're 3-4 to 1 biggest in this market. So we're always going to mess up. It's a statistic. But how we fix that mistake is how we're going to retain that customer. It doesn't matter if a salesperson leaves. A salesperson isn't actually executing that order. The company is. So if, from a company standpoint, if we overservice that customer, they're going to stay with us.
How do you interview and hire, Brent? What do you look for?
I sit in on very few interviews unless it's one that really I feel like it's going to touch me, like a sales, sales, buying. The first thing I really try to gauge on an interview is back to that. Are they looking for a job or are they looking for a career?
Yeah.
And we can't ask a lot of personal questions on that, about kids and family and all that. But I usually know within the first 5 minutes, if somebody, do they want to work? Are they just looking for a job, or do they really want to work for Brothers Produce? Do they want to be a part of my team?
How do you get at that? Again, if you only had 5 minutes to interview someone, what would you ask them, Brent, to try to get to that answer?
I start asking them. I start working their career back. Where do you 12 months from now? What do you want to be doing here? Where do you see yourself? And I usually don't talk about money right at the beginning, because money doesn't mean anything, because sometimes, like I said, I see people take jobs with me for a lot less money and end up making more money over time because they weren't happy at the job they were making more money at, and the growth path wasn't there. So I usually try to look through the crystal ball and see where do they want to be. And I can usually determine right there, are they here for money? Are they here for quality of life? Are they here because they like the brand? And then I can figure out, I believe in a deep bench. Me and my dad, that's one of our biggest arguments we've always had, is that my payroll's too high. Well, you know what? I tell them that 1 to 2% that my payroll is too high is also the reason our company's so much better on the service level in my eyes, because I can lose somebody tomorrow to another company or leave to another career, and my bench is so deep that spot gets filled right in without any training. I always believe you're going to get the best hires. You're not going to find the best hires when you're looking for them. I have produce companies and companies call me all the time. How did I build such a great team? And I said, because I hired people.
You got a deep bench.
I hired people when I didn't need them. People that fell to me because they needed a job, and I may have not necessarily had a job at the time, but I just put them away on that bench. And I knew that, you know what, I'll get to them eventually, and they're going to be a great person for me.
It's the whole concept of the farm team, right? You need to have those.
I just went to I just went to a Texas Roadhouse conference last week in San Diego, and the number one thing that company, it was funny because they preached the exact same message to their managing partners: service, and a deep bench.
Yep, very key. Well, Brent, you've been very, very generous with your time. We just have one last question, and it's kind of one we ask all our CEOs, and it's what career and life advice would you give to someone who maybe has their eyes on the corner office? And let's put it in the context of a family business. Many of the middle market companies in the U.S. are second, third, even fourth generation families. We've got a couple of them on our roster. And what do you think is important when you're coming in at that early age, and maybe it's predestined, maybe it's not. but you kind of knew, it sounded like early on, that you'd probably be taking over that job. Did Uncle, by the way, have any kids that were in contention for that corner office? Yeah,
yeah.
Had some competition.
Well, my uncle's. Well, yeah. So my uncle now. So the company got so big that we've actually spread there. We have Austin and Dallas branches we've divided it up now, where he actually owns those two, and he's got
kids,
3 kids. And unfortunately, his son passed away in August. That was running all those at 42 years old. So they've got some. They're doing very well too, and he's got 2 other daughters also. And like I said, my uncle was a great influence on me. And
but he's not involved now in the ownership of Brothers.
Not of Houston. He owns Austin and Dallas. Yeah, because Houston, Austin, and Dallas are because we got so big, and as family businesses grow, we split it all up.
Split it up.
We split it all up. It's better to divide when things are. It's better always to divide when things are good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it sounds like that's quite an accomplishment to be able to do that effectively.
Always divide. Yeah. You always divide. Yeah, but so back to answer your question.
So what would that advice? Yeah. Back to current advice. What would those things be?
You got to watch and observe the business that these people are going into. To talk to the employees, listen to the employees, understand the business, and determine, why those people. Why do they work? Are they working there for a paycheck? Are they working there because they like the culture of your company? Are they working there because they love the family? I mean, and then from there they can determine, those are the people that are going to help them be a better leader, is the people that have been a part of that family business and have helped that brand grow to what it is. And those are the people they need to network with and take advice from. And a big key to, I believe, my success, I've always been a big networking person, and I talk to people in all sorts of businesses I learn from every industry there is on how to be a better leader on things. And that's why I've really learned that my company is a service company, because when I talk to every company there is out there, everything is about service. I mean, I love Chick-fil-A, and I think it's a great company, and I'm going to go there 9 out of 10 times, but I don't know if they have the best fast food, chicken place. There may be places that are better, but you know what? Their services blows you out of. Yeah, there's 47 cars in the drive-through, and you're getting through in 2 minutes. Where if you go to maybe a Popeyes or somewhere else, yeah, they may have something you like on the menu better, but they may have 4 cars that's going to take longer than those 47. This world, is service, that's what, so I recommend to these people that are getting into this, area I'm in, is branch out yourself, network, listen to the people that are around you in the company that you're a part of, because those are going to be the keys to help you really know what's going on in your company and why people are there and how to make it you don't want to change the things that are good in a company. There's those 5 things that every company has that are just untouchable, that they do so well at. And then you got to determine what those things are, and then not rock the core values that build the company, and try to build on the future off the things you can do better at.
Well, Brent Erenwert, thank you so much. You've been very generous with your time, and we very much appreciate you sharing with us your journey and your story into the corner office.
I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brent Handley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brent, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.